Next up, we'll have a lecture by Mike Fortenberry talking about emergent understandings.
All right. Everything we know, from technology to economics to sociology to psychology to philosophy, will always change continuously over time. And these things will, through time, become unrecognizable to us because of how much they change. People were once certain that everyone would have to forage and hunt for their own food. Once people knew that the earth was flat. Once people were sure that diseases were caused by demons and black magic. And now, many people feel certain that monetary economics is the pinnacle of our of economic organization, and it will never be surpassed. And we believe this even as it falls apart before our very eyes.
Hold on, man. You're saying that I think our system is falling because of corporations and banks that are controlling legislation through lobbying, and they're putting in place these policies that stifle our own economic and competitive, honest work to it. But you're talking about money. Money is a great incentive for people. It makes people do what has to be done in order to keep striving. So the problem here is, I think
It's
that...
not true.
Yeah, I think the problem here is that we just need real political leaders to know how to have honest and fair competition and know what not to legislate out of it that will otherwise keep it so.
Well, you know, you're right. Money does motivate people to do things. Maybe we do just need good political leaders. But why don't you come up and get a microphone and tell me, do you think that good political leaders do you think that good political leaders are motivated by competing against one another for money?
Yeah, obviously, why else would they?
Mike's dead.
Honestly, why else would they compete with each other? Obviously money, and they wanna prove themselves to be that they're the ones best for the job. Hello? Yeah. Anyways, obviously they want to. Yeah, they want to show themselves that they're the best for the job. A problem is that right now they put it like corporations and banks put them in power, so people get easily swayed in TV ads, in the mainstream media, who to choose. They don't know what leaders or how to evaluate their own politicians.
Okay. Well, do you think a real democracy is really possible then, if the majority of people don't understand politics and economics?
Well, that's another problem. I think in our current education, political science is barely taught. I mean, and who's going to follow a political science degree? And that's going to be such a short general population. I think if people were more educated, they wouldn't be so easily swayed by TV.
Well, I absolutely agree that they wouldn't be so easily swayed if they had good education. And that brings me back to my original point, that everything we know will change over time. We were once sure of things that we now know are false, and we think we're sure of things today that will be proven wrong in the future. We're now beginning to come to the realization that a true functioning democracy cannot exist when most of the people don't understand how their society works. And that means we've never really had a true democracy because the majority of the people have never really understood things like politics and economics. So if people don't understand the inner workings of their own society, they can't possibly make meaningful contributions to democratic decision making. This asinine political theater that we see in the news exists precisely because we cannot have a true democracy in the societal environment that we live in. But the societal environment we live in is changing, fortunately, and technology is one of the most powerful catalysts behind that change. Monetary economics was created in a long time ago, and it motivated people to work harder on their farms so that they could produce more food and they could sell their food for more profit, and then there was more food to go around. It was a good thing. And money motivated people to work harder to raise more sheep so that they could spin their wool into threads and weave those threads into clothing. And then they had more clothing to sell for more profit, and it motivated them, and there was more clothing to go around, and it was good. But now we live in a world that the originators of monetary economics couldn't have possibly imagined. Now money motivates people to, well, it motivates food producers to use genetically altered crops that grow faster and bigger so they can have faster and bigger profits. Money motivates food producers to use hormones to produce meat faster, and antibiotics, and we have automated technology now. We have powered machines that can plant the food. We have automated machines that harvest the food and that spin wool into threads, weave the threads into clothing. So money can motivate people to do hard work, but hard work is no longer really necessary with the technology that we have today.
No, wait, man. I think hard work will always need it. You're talking about machines. Who's going to create those machines? Who's going to reprogram them? Who's going to repair them?
Well, you're right. Some work will always be necessary. You know, in the Great Depression, the Roosevelt administration, they submitted a bill that would cut the workday in half, and they would pay the people twice the hourly wages so that twice the amount of people could be employed to do the same amount of work. Of course, it didn't pass, but what do you think about that kind of thing?
Obviously it didn't pass, man. I mean, you can't have the government controlling our wages, controlling our hours. I think the free market is supposed to do that. If as long as people have the right to do unions and negotiate with their employers, the free market will take care of your hours and your fair wage, man.
Okay, I hear you. So what if unions got together? Say there was a union for college professors, and say that union decided that they wanted to have their lectures and their classes recorded so that they wouldn't have to repeat themselves to a new set of students every time, every new period. And then that would enable them to teach more students with the same amount of work, so then they could lower the tuitions and more students would be able to afford to go to college. And the professors could make the same wages, because even though the students may be paying lower tuitions, there are more students because more can afford it. And each professor is teaching more students in the same amount of time. So there's more money to pay so they can have the same salaries. And then let's say another workers' union, a workers' union for factory workers. Let's say they realize that a lot of their workers have had higher level education because of the cheaper education that's available, and they decide that because their workers are more educated, they want them to make more money per hour. So they install an automated system that can do the work of 100 people with only, say, 10 people overseeing it. And then, so 10 workers could come in, and they have 10 times the productivity that they would have if they were working by hand, so you could give them 10 times the pay. And then they can work the first hour of the day, and then that group can go home, and a second group of 10 people can come in, and they can work the second hour of the day. And by the end of the day, all 100 workers that used to work in that factory will have gotten a day's pay for 10 hours, but they've only worked 1 hour. And the employer would have to pay 10 times the rate for labor, but only 1/10 of the labor is now necessary. So the labor cost per unit would actually be the same.
Wait. That's going to cost a lot of money, man. Whoever the employer is paying for this, how is he going to get compensated for it?
Well, yeah, they are going to want to be compensated for their investment. But what if the workers agreed to work extra hours for free to help install the new system? And the systems cost a lot of money because it's advanced. So if you lower the cost of education, you lower the cost of the system. And if these workers have been educated and they're the ones who know how to put the system into place, then they can negotiate however they want. You know, and they might agree to put it in place for free because of how much it'll benefit them. You know, to have those shortened working hours for the same pay. And they might take 9 times the hourly pay instead of 10 times the hourly pay, so that the employer could increase the profit margins. And moreover, if people had more free time, a lot more free time, and if people didn't come home from work exhausted and stressed every day, and they had cheaper access to education, do you think that would have more people, a greater number of people in society reaching the level of education that would then enable them to have a meaningful contribution to democratic decision making? Not to say that everybody would reach that level, but do you think those conditions would have more people reaching that level or less people reaching that level?
I think more people will do.
Okay. So our representative democracy was created in a time when people delivered messages from one person to another on horseback. There were no cell phones, there were no satellites, there was no high-speed internet. Who thinks that maybe there might be a better way to organize a representative democracy with the technology we have now? Make some noise if you think so. Our monetary economic system was created in a time when there was no robotics, there was no automation technology, there was no Wall Street, there were none of these derivatives and stocks being traded by computer algorithms, you know. So who thinks maybe, just maybe, this whole thing that we're doing needs to be reevaluated today? Thank you very much.